Okay, so I got another one. I wonder if this one will be more stable. Okay. And then if not, there's another way for all of us to connect to if it's not going to let the YouTube live stream. I can try it tomorrow early and just stay and keep it on. And then if not, then
Okay.
there's another resource we have to use.
Maybe you can use a Zoom. Have you ever tried Zoom?
Yeah, the Zoom is pretty good. The only bad thing about Zoom is that it's been getting compromised lately. So there's people who come in and they hack. So that's the
Oh,
only, yeah,
okay.
like the school district doesn't even allow us to use it for that reason.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So let me see. So I sent out another link. Um, no one's gone on there yet. Hmm. Let's see. Okay, good. All right, we're back. All right, so I got three
Oh my
people
God, nice.
on. Okay. Okay. Perfect. Okay. All right. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get started then. Looks like most of us already are here now. Live is working well. Okay. So we're gonna talk about
Okay, so,
inferencing. I'm sorry?
okay, so should I hang up and get into YouTube?
Yep. And go to YouTube.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Bye. Okay, so we got up to the same number. All right. So in the future, I'm just the only reason I took a break today was just to call people to try to get more people to come on. So I think everything in my house runs off of Wi-Fi. So I think that when I got off of YouTube and then I try to get back on it, everyone else's computers and TVs and everything start hooking up to the internet. So in the future, we're just gonna keep the live stream. So there might come a time where I'll just blank it out so that the computer keeps the internet as opposed to like having to log back on after everybody else is already joined. So we're going to talk about inferencing. And there's two types of actually let's talk about what an inference is. Okay. So an inference, okay? An inference is an educated guess. Okay. And that means that you're using two things. Okay. So an inference, the educated guess. Okay. So that is taking, again, your prior knowledge, which you know from before, right? Your schema. So that's taking your prior knowledge plus clues from the text. Okay. Text clues. Use a different color just to make it easier to see. Text clues. Okay. So remember, picture's a little blurry. Okay, I'll see if I can scoot you guys up a little bit. Is that better? Okay. So your prior knowledge plus what the text is telling you, that is how you infer. Okay. So this is going to be the hardest thing to do in reading, like we talked about before. If we don't have the prior knowledge, it's hard to understand what the text is talking about. So, given the fact that people are new to the country, you haven't been in school for a little while, it's hard to have that background knowledge. All right. Oh, someone's saying they can't see the text. Okay. You know, and I'll make this in black. Text clues. Better? Okay. How about now? So there's two types of inferences that we make. This is what makes an inference, right? Your background knowledge and the text clues. And there's two types. Okay. The first one is implicit. Okay. An implicit inference is where you're relying more on what you know than what the text is telling you. So, an implicit inference, if you look at what an inference is, your background knowledge plus the text, right? So, if you look at your schema, your background knowledge plus text clues, when you're making an implicit inference, you're going to be relying on your background knowledge, your schema, okay? Your background knowledge. Questions so far? Okay. So here's what I mean by, and we're talking about implicit because if implicit relies more on your background and not so much on the clues from the text, the other type of inference is explicit. And that's when you are relying on the text. Okay. So the minute that you're relying more on the text, that's an explicit. You will almost never have this on the informational text or actually really fiction. This is really going to be something, actually, when I think about it, this is going to be something you're going to see more on informational text, right? They're going to give you a graph and then they're going to say, according to the graph, what do you know about pollution levels in the ocean or something like that, right? So when we talk about explicit, It's for graphs and charts. It's right in front of your face. So, let me give you an example of explicit, the way you'll see explicit. So, an example of explicit, right? That you're going to see on the test. You're going to see something like this. And it's going to say rainfall in Las Vegas. This is going to say inches, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is going to be days. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And it might ask you something like, what is the difference in rainfall on Wednesday as opposed to Tuesday? Or what day has the most amount of rain in the desert? All right. So this is going to be an example of an explicit. All right. Now, I know some of you guys are saying, hey, I'm really good at guessing. Remember, this is an educated guess. Okay. Let me give you an example of what you're going to see on the test. Okay. So this is explicit. You're going to see this on the test. You're going to get a few questions. Most of your reading questions alone, whether they're fiction or nonfiction, informational or literature, are going to be implicit, meaning it relies on your background knowledge. So I'm going to show you a quick video and we're going to talk about implicit. So, given that, what can we infer? Well, it looks like there's a zombie, and the zombie is coming towards a person in the car. They don't really know what to do. So, I would infer that person's probably going to get eaten, right? Now, I have background knowledge on what a zombie is. All right. So, I know that I have background knowledge or schema, right? On what a zombie is. So, although the text itself, in this case, the video, but let's say we were reading about it, I didn't really get a lot of help from the text. I had to rely on my background knowledge. There's a zombie, it's coming towards somebody. I know in my experience from movies and reading books and all that other stuff, the zombies attack people, and that if you don't like shoot them, they're going to eat you, right? So I would know from my background knowledge that that person's probably going to get eaten. All right. That's an example of an implicit inference. All right. This is all implicit. The reason they like to give you implicit questions, implicit inferencing questions, is because this is going to really see if the little bit of text clues that they gave you, if you can piece that together with your background knowledge to understand what's going on. So, a good example of that is if you're reading a story, right? There's a couple, and one of them says something like, and then the woman says, I'm late, right? Well, if you don't have any background knowledge with having kids, you're probably not going to understand or infer what that means. So that's why we have that example. So if you have the background knowledge, then you know that that's exactly what they're talking about is the fact that a kid is on the way. Where this becomes the most difficult is the fact that we don't always have the background knowledge. That's why we do the computer skills. That's why we do the We do the computer skills, we do the workplace skills, so that we can talk about things that would normally not be in your knowledge base, right? So if you don't know about Shakespeare or Aristotle or Plato or Robert Frost and they're asking you a question about him, then it's going to be hard to have that background knowledge. But if we start talking about that now, then you can use a little bit of clues you're getting from the text to make that inference. All right, I'm gonna stop right here. Questions about this so far? Because I'm gonna give you the code to log into a program, and I'm gonna actually work that out with you. One moment. Any questions? Okay. So I'm gonna give you a code now for a separate program where we're gonna be looking at some text. All right, perfect. I'm gonna post it in the comments. Now, I understand some of you guys are using a tablet or a cell phone, and the program may not work perfectly. So if you're using a tablet or a cell phone, don't bother to go into the program. I will walk through the questions with you. If you do have a laptop or a computer or a tablet that lets you type, go ahead and give the program a try. Okay. So that's the link, excuse me, for the program. And then this is the passcode. So again, please try it if you have a laptop, if you have a computer. Again, if you're using a tablet, I imagine a tablet would work fine. But if you log on to that, you're going to see a couple of questions. And we're going to look at the very first question. Again, if you're using this on a phone, you will still be able to participate and ask questions. I'm going to be going between the text and the live stream, so if there's a little delay in me responding to questions, that's the only reason why. Yeah, you can log in later. So let's say for example, if you're like, "Hey, I don't have access to a computer now, but I will later in the day," that code will work fine. You can log on. If you're having any trouble with that, feel free to shoot me an email, text, all the different ways that we communicate. So here, it's asking us to read a story and then infer. So those of you who are using a cell phone, this is where you're going to want to listen to the story, and then we're going to talk about the questions. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read this out loud. While I'm reading, I can't look at questions. So when I'm done reading, then I'm going to check the chat. Okay, so the directions: read each passage and then respond to the questions. Each question will ask you to make a logical inference based on textual details. Okay, you're going to see that word a lot: textual, text based evidence, textual evidence. Okay, that means it just comes from something that is written down. Text means anything that is written down. You're going to see that a lot. So explain your answer by referencing the text. So I'm going to erase this. I'm going to read the text and I'm going to write down on the board a couple of things that stand out to me about the text. And if you have access to the program, you're going to see a little figure that looks like a pencil or a pen. You can use that to write. You're going to see a T. You can use that to text, like actually write text on the worksheet. I see it as you're writing it. And I'm actually going to be writing on the master worksheet. So if you're logged on to ClassKick, you'll actually see the text in real time. Okay. So as I read, I'm going to do a combination of writing up my notes on the board and writing it in the actual program. So everyone has an opportunity to see. It's important that anytime that we read, we have to write in the text. It doesn't matter if your notes are in English or your native language. It's important that we actually write on the text. And this is not something I just do for school. I also do this in my personal life. So I have a couple of homes, I have a couple of rentals, and anytime that I'm meeting with a lawyer or a tenant and I'm reading a contract, looking at a lease, I write everything down. That's called close reading. And it's important to do that. So every day after work, I'm reading the text now. Paul took his muddy boots off on the steps of the front porch. Okay, so I'm going to write down Paul has muddy boots. And I'm going to start thinking, who do, right? Maybe he does some kind of like maintenance, right? Says to the text, I'm going to be doing the same thing. I'm going to highlight, underline. This is what we do when we're digesting the text. We're breaking the text down. So the fact that he has muddy boots is telling me who, what he does. Alice would have a fit if the boots met. Well, so Alice is a woman, and I've been, unfortunately, I have been married before. So this sounds to me like Alice has to have a romantic relationship with him. I don't imagine that a roommate would come and complain to you about muddy boots. I don't imagine that a friend would really do that. I mean, I guess possibly a friend, but the fact that Alice sounds like a feminine name, Paul sounds like a masculine name, I'm going to assume they have some kind of romantic relationship, right? So I would add that to my Alice gets upset with Paul over the boots. Okay. So it seems to me like, and I would, and notice how I'm always writing things out and I'm kind of like almost having a conversation with myself. You want to do that as you read. This is how you're activating your prior knowledge, right? So I would write maybe a girlfriend, maybe a wife, right? Now, doesn't mean that every idea that I have is going to be accurate. I could be wrong. But again, it's about activating your prior knowledge and it's about breaking all the information down. All right. Give me one moment. Sorry. Gonna make some adjustments here. Okay. So I'm gonna highlight in red the name S, right? And again, some questions I may not be able to write or highlight. So that's why I talk about the skills that we need to write it on a separate sheet of paper and what we do when we actually have the ability to write. So I'm actually going to text out here, write in text, Alice is the girlfriend. Draw a little arrow to remind myself that That's what it seems like. Now, I know that you might go, well, this is a time test. Isn't this going to take a long time? It really won't, because this is also, even when we've timed it, when I am giving instruction and taking questions from the people that are taking questions from the class, at most it might take 5 minutes. But the more we practice reading this way, the more efficient and the faster we become. All right, let's see if there's any questions before. So somebody had asked if they can print it or do you work on it as it is. I prefer that you work on it as it is because I can check it. And the great thing about it is I can check it at home. I can check it when I'm at the supermarket or wherever we're allowed to go nowadays. I know we're on lockdown. So I prefer that you leave all your work in the program itself. Is there any question? Any other questions before we continue on? Yeah. So let's continue reading. He then took off his dusty overalls and threw them into a plastic garbage bag. Alice left a new garbage bag tied to the porch railing for him every morning. Okay. Well, the fact that she's leaving a trash bag and she's tying it to the porch, again, and with my background knowledge with relationships, I would say that this definitely makes me believe that either she's some kind of a girlfriend or a wife. Okay. I don't see roommates having the kind of relationship where one would go through the motions of like putting up a garbage bag and asking the roommate to take off the shoes and stuff like that. So this is reinforcing to me the idea that I can infer this is a romantic relationship. Okay. On his way in the house, he dropped the garbage bag off at the washing machine and went straight up the stairs to the shower as he was instructed. So this is definitely reinforcing to me now. In fact, if it's instructed, I would say that's probably not really your girlfriend and more of a wife, right? Because now, and I would highlight this, he is being told what to do. All right. So now he's being told what to do. So this definitely makes me believe it's a romantic relationship. All right. So he would eat dinner with her after he was presentable, as Alice had often said. So this confirms my inference that based off the fact that he cannot have the muddy shoes in the house, has to put him in a bag, is told what to do, and and is eating dinner with this person and actually cares about their appearance, I would believe that this person is his wife, right? Any questions about how I came to that conclusion? Oh, somebody asked if everyone seems to be right. No, they do not. Only I see. So when you're using the program Class Kick, that comes directly to me. Now, the chat, I don't see it on your end, so I believe you guys can see each other's messages, but any work that you do, only I can see it. There is a mode in Class Kick where I can allow you guys to work with each other. And if I ever want to use your work as an example of something, then I will actually make your name anonymous. So your name would be like humming hippo or pleasant penguin or something like that. The program actually allows me to do that. So if I say, hey, this is a great example of what I would like you guys to do, then I would make your names anonymous so that you're able to work privately. And sometimes I do like doing that, especially with the essays, because it makes more sense when you're seeing somebody in the classroom and you're looking at their work. It's easier to understand how to improve when you can see someone else doing it. I'm actually going to hide everyone who has not started or who hasn't accessed the program so I can see if anybody in here is writing. Okay, and I like this program a lot, especially given the current situation, because I can see everybody working. So I have one, two, three, four, five people on. Okay, so out of the 8 people that are watching this, you guys are on. Okay, so that's almost 60%. All right, so let's. Okay, actually, first also, there's a few of you that don't have the option. So what I would like to do is allow those of you, because the vast majority of you guys are on Class Kick, I want to allow you guys some time to work on the second question by yourselves, and then work in a group. We'll come together to talk about the second question as a group once we're done with this first example. Okay. So let's look at some of the questions that it's asking us. Sorry, I'm checking some work and scrolling down, and I'm about to check for questions here in a moment. Okay. So the first question is, what type of job do? Well, I could defend it. Again, and this is the type of question where I need to come back to the text. So he's working outside and he has muddy boots. So I need to come up with a realistic job, a plausible job that people do that have muddy boots. And we talked about that before. Could be a construction worker, maybe a farmer, maybe he works in maintenance, maybe he's like an electrician or something and he's out there fixing lines or working on houses, but has to be something I can back that up with. And they ask you the second question, how do you know this? So we're going to use the magical sentence that we learned earlier, which was according to the text. So we're going to say, all right, now, if you're wondering, because you're going to get a lot of questions like this, how do you know, um, show proof, or use textual evidence? I'm going to give you a really simple strategy, and it's called the race strategy. I'll make that bigger. RACE. Okay. Anytime they're asking you to prove something, and these are called text dependent questions, they want you to prove something by using evidence from the text. That's what they're asking you. How do you know this? You're going to use the race strategy. The R stands for restate, which means you're going to use the question to answer the question. So if it's asking you, how do you know this? You would say, I know this because that's how you restate the question. The next thing you need to do is answer the question. I know this, right? So restate the question. I know that Paul is a farmer, period. And then you answer it. Because, so that's the answer, right? You actually have the restating and the answer. You have to tell me, or you have to tell the whoever's grading this, where you got the information from. And that's what we're going to say according to the text. So let me stop right there and see if there's any questions. Questions? So you would say, now you would cite, the very last thing you do is explain or expand. And this is where you say, I know because. right? Or I'm sorry, you would say, I know, or no, actually, you know what? Let's give you a better sentence frame. How about this shows, right? So you would say, this shows, this proves. So you would say, Paul is a farmer, right? So you know that. So this is how you would put all of it together. I know that Paul is a farmer because according to the text, he is outside working in the mud and comes home and has to take off his boots that are muddy. This shows that he is a farmer who is working in the fields. So notice how I use each part of the race strategy. Anytime that you get a question that is asking you to information from, you need to use the race strategy. So we have a couple of options for you guys to respond. Those of you that are in Class Kick, you can press the T. It'll let you create a box. You can type in the box, and I would like everybody to answer that question. How do we know what Paul's job is? How do we know what Paul's job is? I'm going to give you a few minutes to do that. All right, so I'm looking through. I'm not seeing anyone sending me a text asking the question. All right. Okay, and we're coming up to about 8 minutes, and I know we had technical difficulties. So I'm gonna put that out there. I'm willing to continue on a little bit past 12. The class would normally end at 12, but due to the circumstances surrounding me taking over last minute and the technical difficulties, we can go on a little bit more so we can introduce the math, or we can pick up on the math starting tomorrow, whatever you guys are comfortable with. So as I'm jumping in, looking at the responses, again, I'm going to pose another question. If you'd like to continue on, say continue on. If you would like to stop at 12 and then pick up with the math first thing tomorrow and then move on to the reading, we can do that. Just let me know in the comment section, please. Responding back to some people. Okay. And as I'm seeing here, some people are responding that it's not clear. Yes, that's why we're inferring because it's not clear. We have to take our background knowledge and what the text is giving us to make a educated guess. So none of these are going to be detailed, and you're going to get questions just like that on the test. Okay, let's see if anybody responded about going on. My life keeps freezing. I have errands to run, so tomorrow is better for me. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna look through some of the responses. Okay. So we got about 4 minutes. I'm just gonna. Okay, good. I see you guys are starting off with that race strategy, restating the question right out the gate. Good. And if you guys ever see any gifts when you're working in class kick, that's me. So if you see like Beyonce, if you see the Seahawks beast mode, that's me letting you know that you're doing a good job. Okay. So tomorrow, I'm going to keep the live feed. Looks like most of you enjoyed the live feed. All of you said that it'd be easier to stop at 12. We all have things to do. Perfectly understandable. So tomorrow, I'm going to keep the live feed going the whole time. And we're going to immediately start off with the math, and we're going to talk about algebra. As I've been reviewing your CASA scores, your tape test scores, um, I'm going to continue to refine it. Algebraic equations seems to be where almost everyone is struggling. So that's where we will work. And I'm going to use a combination of Class Kick and Khan Academy. The connection now I know is more stable than it was before. But if I start off with a live stream tomorrow, it'll be more fluid and it's not going to be so choppy because I'm actually seeing it as I'm saying it that it's choppy. So we got about 2 minutes left. Any questions before we sign off? All right. If you think of a question and it's after the stream is done, please reach out to me. You have multiple ways to get a hold of me, and you'll be able to let me know what your question is. All right. So I'm going to give it. And I'm going to be leaving the live stream videos. I'm going to delete the ones that were weird and didn't want to load. Uh, Okay. So after the live, so the way that we work tomorrow, we're going to start off with the live and we're going to talk about algebra, probably algebraic equations. Once we're done with the instruction, there's going to be a point where you're going to be working on problems I'm going to give you. Then we're going to come back. We're going to talk about a computer skill, a workplace skill, and then we're going to jump right into reading. So Aztec and work keys needs to be done either after the class or before. Going to jump right into reading. So Aztec and work keys needs to be done either after the class or before the class, right? So that we really take the 3 hours that I have with you and use the entire time. Okay. So it is now 12 o'clock. Again, any questions before I end the stream? Um, Give me a phone call, anything like that. All right. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate your patience during all of this.